Hello friends, today in this video I am going to be telling the story of the 2023 Netflix original series School Spirit Season 1. The show is about a teen that seems to be stuck in the afterlife and can't leave her high school grounds. If you just want to recap a single episode of the season, I will put the timestamps in the description below. But with all that said, let's get it started. Episode 1. My So-Called Death. The show starts off where we meet our main character, Maddie, watching a school assembly take place announcing her own disappearance. Most believe she is dead, which she is, but they don't know for sure. There was blood found in the basement by the janitor's closet that many believe to be hers, but it's not definitive. Maddie's best friends are Simon and Nicole, who are still alive, and sad their bestie is gone. Maddie then meets a fellow ghost by the name of Charlie, who explains to her the whole thing about being a ghost in the school. He explains anyone who dies on school grounds is stuck there for all and eternity. Talk about hell. Charlie then guides her to an afterlife support group where she meets the other ghosts by the names of Wally and Rhonda. Also, Mr. Martin is there as well, who is the authority figure. Maddie doesn't remember how she died, but they say it will come to her eventually. She thinks it may have been her boyfriend Xavier that did it to her. Maddie sees her bestie Simon confront Xavier, and Maddie's phone then falls out of Xavier's bag, which doesn't look great for him. Simon is sure Xavier is responsible, or at least knows something. We see in a flashback that Xavier stole Maddie's phone when she was distracted earlier in the day. Maddie tries leaving the school grounds, but keeps ending up back in the boiler room where she died. She then witnesses a vigil take place in the school gym, and she is heartbroken to see her mom as broken down as she is. We then jump outside where Xavier is talking to his dad, who is the sheriff, and he asks why he has Maddie's phone. Xavier was cheating on Maddie with popular girl Claire, and he wanted to delete a message he accidentally sent to Maddie. Maddie is super sad when she hears this. Maddie then also notices Simon completely break down as he misses Maddie so much. The closing minutes of the episode shows Simon somehow able to see Maddie, even in her ghost-like state. Episode 2. The Fault in Our Stars. The episode begins with Simon and Maddie able to talk, and Charlie is completely shocked by this because they have never communicated with an alive person until now. Maddie tells Simon she doesn't know how she died, but Simon says he will get to the bottom of it. Charlie tells Maddie not to tell any of the other ghosts about this. Xavier is to stay at home until his father can clear his name because everyone thinks he is a murderer now. Mr. Martin asks Maddie to write an obituary and move on, but she isn't ready to let go. It is then confirmed by detectives that the blood found in the boiler room was Maddie's. Claire goes to talk with Xavier and says she will help clear his name. When the police look at Maddie's phone, there is nothing on it, so everyone, including his father, thinks he wiped it to hide something inside or swapped it. Maddie then talks to Simon and tells him her murderer was someone she trusted because she wouldn't go in the boiler room with anyone sketchy. Maddie says the last thing she remembers was leaving class to go find her mom, who had just arrived at the school that day. In the police report, it was reported that her mom never saw her that day, so she had to be murdered on the way to see her. Simon tells her Xavier skipped his 8th period class that day, and he starts to suspect Claire may have been involved as well. Simon then finds a piece of Maddie's phone and now really thinks Xavier destroyed it and then swapped it with a brand new one to look like hers. Police dogs then come to the school and they smell something near Mr. Anderson, and he says it is just Maddie's paper he was grading. Not sketchy at all. Maddie then notices Claire save a student who was drowning in the pool, and this makes her believe Claire is innocent of killing her. Xavier goes to see Maddie's mom, and they grieve together for her loss. A little later, Simon finds Mr. Anderson in the exact spot where Simon found the broken phone piece earlier. The episode ends with Charlie wondering if he can speak to the living too, because a boy he was in love with in high school is now a teacher at the school, and he wants to finally confess his feelings for him. Nothing like having a ghost tell you they've always loved you. Episode 3. Dead and Confused. This episode opens with Simon confronting Mr. Anderson, asking him what he was doing there, and thinks he was picking up any pieces of the phone he may have missed. He doesn't say anything and drives off. We then see Maddie's mom go to the cops and ask why they aren't out searching for her daughter, and they need to be better at their jobs. We then see through a flashback that Anderson and Maddie actually got along really well, and he was there for her when she was sad about her father. She really doesn't think Mr. Anderson could have been the one to kill her. Later, Simon breaks into Anderson's car and finds a piece of the phone in his glove box. Simon shows this to Maddie, but she doesn't think he is responsible, and they argue with each other. Wally is there waiting for her in a golf cart to cheer her up after the fight. The other bestie, Nicole, gets a notification that Maddie liked one of her photos on Instagram, which is weird, considering she is dead. Xavier then follows Nicole right after this, and he confronts her. But he isn't there to kill her. He's there to prove he still loves Maddie and wants to find her and will help search for her. Simon then asks Mr. Anderson why he didn't turn in the broken phone piece to the police, and Anderson says the police are not to be trusted. Maddie soon learns that she can't communicate with Simon in rooms where someone was murdered, and they are called the scars of the school. She also learned that Rhonda, one of the ghosts, was killed in Mr. Anderson's office. They make up together, and Maddie says she will start listening to Simon's input and arguments about who did it. Simon then sneaks into Anderson's classroom one night and eavesdrops on a conversation where Anderson is telling someone they need to do things his way from now on. When he leaves the room, Maddie and Simon find a buttload of money hidden in the closet. Episode 4. Ghoul Intentions. The episode begins with Maddie trying to get into Anderson's phone, but she doesn't know the passcode. Maddie then goes to ask the other ghosts if they have ever noticed Anderson doing anything nefarious, but they don't really give her much information at all. Simon and Nicole are at school, and Nicole is telling Simon she and Xavier found a footprint in the woods, and she believes it may be Maddie's, but Simon tells her it's not. Nicole still thinks Maddie is alive. She doesn't know that she's a ghost roaming the high school, and Simon doesn't want to break that news to her. Simon also gets mad at her for hanging out with Xavier. Maddie is talking with the other Afterlife crew when Simon runs into the room and says he needs to talk to her. The three other ghosts are completely shocked because this is the first time they saw a ghost speak to someone that is alive. They are mad at Charlie for not telling them this earlier. A little later, Xavier and Nicole are leaving school, but then Claire stops them to chat with them. Xavier then comes clean to Nicole about him cheating on Maddie with Claire, and Nicole is pissed at him and thinks he is responsible for her running away. Simon is then called in for questioning by the police, and they believe Simon is holding valuable information from them. They ask him about the phone piece, but he just says he found it and Anderson told him not to turn it in because the police can't be trusted. Maddie found some dirt on Mr. Anderson and relayed it to Simon and at the school. Simon interrupts up a teacher meeting explaining that Mr. Anderson has been stealing money for what was supposed to be for new athletic uniforms. He was buying fake ones and pocketing the extra cash. Mr. Anderson is then called in for questioning. Maddie is having a movie night with the ghost crew, and one of them says she knows everyone's passcode on their phone because she is a creep, and this prompts Maddie to tell Simon to bring Anderson's phone to her since she has the passcode now. When Simon brings the phone, the most recent number that was called was none other than Claire's. Episode 5. The Twilight End Zone. The episode begins with Claire waiting outside Anderson's house because she wants to talk to him after his interviews with the police. She leaves when he doesn't show. At school for the next week, Simon and Maddie stalk Claire pretty much everywhere in the school, but don't find anything. We also learn that Maddie and Claire were best friends growing up, but grew apart as they got older. The police call Sandra, Maddie's mom, to inform her that they found Maddie's backpack in an abandoned building, but no one else there. It then turns out that this same building is owned by Claire's parents. All signs pointing to Claire, but that would be too easy. It is homecoming week, and even the dead ghosts like celebrating their school spirit, so they decorate along with the actual students. Maddie even sees her mom come to the school and help put up decorations. Simon does some research of Anderson's grading system, and he discovers that Claire was getting straight A's despite never actually turning in any of the homework. Claire finally confronts Mr. Anderson, and he says he's not telling her what he told the police, and she freaks out. Through an anonymous video sent, we see Claire was blackmailing Anderson for straight A's, knowing he took the school money for himself. Claire is afraid of everyone finding out and her losing her full-ride college scholarship. Simon thinks maybe Claire thought Maddie recorded the video, and that is why she killed Maddie. We then jump over to Xavier, who is doing some digging about the abandoned house, and he sees someone leave the house, but is unable to see who it was. Now the others are on a mission to find out if the person who recorded the video is the same person Xavier saw at the abandoned building. Maddie tells Simon that Xavier should ask Claire to the homecoming dance and then try guilt-tripping her into admitting that she killed Maddie because of the video. Simon sends her the message, but Claire ignores it. We then see Wally crushing on Maddie, and he asks her to be his homecoming date, and she says yes. The episode closes with Maddie and Simon going down to the basement where her blood was found, and they find a hidden room they didn't know about. They wonder if the killer used this room to plant her body after being murdered. Episode 6. Grave the Last Dance. The episode starts off with Claire finally messaging Xavier back, and she says she will go to the dance with him. The plan is set in motion to get the truth out of Claire because they are under the impression she is the killer. We then see Wally super giddy that Maddie said she will go to the dance with him, and we can tell he has a big crush on her, but she isn't really thinking a relationship at the moment. I mean, she is in the afterlife. Claire and Xavier meet up, and she asks him what changed his mind for them to be together, and he says he wasn't in the right headspace at the time. He is doing better now. They even share a kiss on the way to the school. He is starting to feel bad about setting her up now, and doesn't know if he can go through with it. The dance starts and Wally is having an awesome time, but meanwhile, Xavier and Simon get into an argument when Simon says he doesn't know if he can expose Claire now. Simon says he better, and this is for Maddie, the girl he cheated on and died. Maddie then watches Xavier and Claire leave the room together, and Wally is sad that Maddie is more focused on them than she is to him. Xavier and Claire head down to the boiler room where she notices he is recording their conversation. He does actually confront her, and he shows her the video he received from the anonymous number. Claire admits she did think Maddie recorded the video, but she would never kill someone over something so minuscule. When they get upstairs, Xavier relays this information to Simon, who tells it to Maddie. Then jump over to Sandra's house where the police have arrived, and they tell her they found a crowbar with blood on it in the same abandoned house where the backpack was. The sheriff also tells her they brought in the custodian, Mr. South, for questioning. Jump back to the dance where Maddie apologizes to Wally for being distant, and they share a kiss. The episode closes with Sandra drinking again, thinking her daughter is dead, and then we also see Nicole burying something in the pouring rain. Episode 7. Séance Anything. The episode begins with Simon and Nicole talking, and Simon isn't buying it that Mr. South did anything to Maddie. He's too nice and innocent. A little later, we see Nicole acting even more sketchy, and she is burning photos of Maddie that was in a project of hers. Simon says they still haven't figured out who recorded the video, and he believes that will lead them to their guy. Nicole is on the verge of giving up, and she says it is taking too much of a toll on her mental state. The gang minus Nicole then hatches a plan to sneak into the police evidence room and see what they might have in addition to the information they know. Claire distracts the cops while the others sneak into the evidence room. They see a boot print picture, but Simon knows right off the bat it isn't Maddie's. So whose is it? Back at the school, Nicole is freaking out trying to get on one of the computers there because she wants to wipe something off of it, but we don't know what yet. Maddie is still trying to figure out any kind of memory she can, and Simon comes in and speaks with her. Simon says she won't like this, but they have to consider Nicole to be a suspect because of how weird she has been lately. It turns out the video that Nicole was trying to delete was the video she took of Anderson and Claire together. Simon then shows up and says they already know she took the video, so there is no point in wiping it now. Nicole says she only took the video because she desperately needed money for college, so she blackmailed Mr. Anderson. Simon believes her and says they have to return the money to clear Mr. South's name. They then head to dig it up as she buried it. We then jump over to Sandra's house where she is counting money and hiding it in Maddie's room. The episode closes with Maddie seeing flashbacks, and she even says, "I think my mother might have killed me." Episode 8. Madison's Body. Season Finale. Maddie tells Simon to look into her mom and see what he can find. Simon finds an envelope inside one of the drawers and leaves before Sandra can see he took it. Inside the envelope is a necklace, and Maddie was wearing the necklace the day she died, but didn't have it on in the afterlife. Maddie tells Simon to convince her mother to come to the school and ask her point blank if she did, and Maddie will be able to tell if she is lying. Meanwhile, Nicole, Claire, and Xavier are trying to figure out a way to clear Mr. South's name without actually turning in the blackmailed money, because if they do, Nicole will go to jail for theft. But they also don't want an innocent man behind bars. When Sandra arrives to the school, she starts to seem uneasy and doesn't really want to be there. Before she can leave, Simon asks her how she had the necklace Maddie was wearing if she didn't see her that day. Hearing this triggers Maddie's memory, and she starts to remember what happened the day she died. She says Maddie and herself had a fight that day because she used her husband's life insurance money to buy a new house instead of use it for Maddie's college fund. Maddie was extremely pissed by this decision. We see this all happen through flashbacks. When they started yelling at each other, Maddie ripped off her necklace and gave it to her mother and said to never return. Sandra then left, but Maddie was alive when she bounced out of there. Maddie confirms to Simon this is the truth. We then jump back over to Nicole, Claire, and Xavier, who have wound up at someone's house staking it out. They see someone go in, but when Xavier tries catching them, they get in the truck and drive away. Maddie is completely broken as she has no idea who killed her, and she even shares a moment with Simon because he is the only person who has always been there for her, and she believes that is why she can communicate with him and no one else. Nicole then shows Simon a reflection of the getaway driver, and it was none other than Maddie herself. Plot twist. We then have a flashback to that day in the boiler room, and Maddie saw Mr. Martin yelling at Janet, and the ghost of Janet flew into Maddie's body. So this whole time, Maddie has been alive and her soul has been at the school with Janet's soul in Maddie's body, trying to start a new life by framing it as Maddie died in the boiler room. The season closes with Janet in Maddie's body buying a bus ticket out of town. And that is it for Season 1 of School Spirits. Season 2 is set to release soon, so when it does, I will get that video out as well. Thanks for watching.